All right. Welcome everyone to the first episode of goLive, where we have a very interesting conversations with a lot of our clients over the next few days. And the focus is having conversations about going live on GenAI, right? Because that's been the focus across. I'm the host, Rishabh, founder of GoML. And at GoML, we work with our clients to help them move from POC to production for their generative AI workloads in 8 weeks. The focus of today's conversation, again, just to probably give an understanding to our audience, is to hear from our customers across multiple areas in terms of what they're trying to building, how they're leveraging something like generative AI, which is a very nascent and niche technology, and then how, most importantly, they are going live or they're leveraging this technology to solve really, really focused business outcomes and going live into production using it for their customers. Today, I have a very, very interesting guest, a very close client of GoML as well. Uh, while obviously, I can probably spend, the whole episode in introducing Adrian today, but I'm going to speak to someone, or you guys are going to hear from someone who has, invented cars at General Motors, who has worked on robos at Tesla, right? Who has been involved in designing rides at Disney, and who has tested drugs at Johnson, right? If that doesn't intrigue you, I don't know what does, right? So before we, we introduce Adrian, we want to get started with a very, very short video, which is a very, very good precursor in terms of what we're going to showcase from the use case perspective. All right, so let's get started with the intro video, and then we'll have Adrian introduce himself.
Every kid needs something different, and I'm the one trying to figure it out. I've tried everything: Epic, the library, my curriculum, thousands of books. Still, nothing works for all my students. I scroll, I second guess. I try everything, and it's still not working. Then I found Ojje. A few clicks, I set each student's reading grade. And just like that, the entire library transformed. 15 reading levels. K through 12, English and Spanish. Reading comprehension questions, built in. Same content, same story, different depth. Now every student is reading, at their ability, on the same topic, with the same story. It connects to what we're learning, and shows me how each reader is progressing, whether it's one student or an entire classroom. With Ojje, everyone reads their way.
Adrian, I have so many questions, so many thoughts after looking at that video, and obviously I know a lot of these details behind the scenes. But before we get into anything, why don't you probably give a quick introduction to our audience?
Sure. Hello, everyone. I'm Adrian Chernoff, CEO of Ojje. Yes, I've invented cars at General Motors, and I was a vice president of research and development at Johnson & Johnson, creating some pretty amazing applications to help patients with diabetes. But you know what my current mission is to help students with literacy. It's a huge growing issue in the United States, around the world. There are curriculums that are provided to classrooms that only come at one reading level, and you could have 9 or 11 different reading grade levels in a classroom. Makes it really hard for teachers to teach and help kids learn. And also the formats are dated. They're things that are designed 20, 30 years ago, even 5 years ago. But how do you create content that's more engaging, more uplifting, that improves reading outcomes and literacy? And that's what Ojje is about. And I'm excited to have this conversation with you today, Rish.
Thanks, Adrian, for that introduction. While I totally agree, being a new parent, right? I agree probably in two terms, right? One is that the screen time that children are spending has gone up significantly in the last 10 years, right? A lot of these children, and I'm probably simply talking about children, right, under the age of 10 are spending a lot of screen time. Number two, and these are numbers that probably the Washington Times and a lot of leading publications have published, that the overall reading levels, right, across children have gone down by over close to 60% in the last 1 decade, right? So very close to probably my heart as well, and I'm pretty sure our audience would also love to understand. But how does, and you've highlighted the problem, right, that you're trying to solve, right? But how does OG as a product, right, solve that problem? What is your vision of probably how you're going to attack this problem, like for the children of that age group, or probably teachers of that age group, or teaching that age group?
You know, what's interesting is that, so our application is for K through 12, kindergarten through 12th grade. But I think the question is, why does it really matter? Like, and I'll try to kind of tease that out a little bit. But as a parent, I think you understand. But also as a teacher, we all really want to advance every single person in our household or in our classroom, or if you're a district leader, everybody in your district, your schools. And how do you do so? And so we need to have a way that makes content really accessible, to everyone at every grade and every ability. So what we do is you're as a teacher, as an example, you can go through and set up your entire classroom and set them at their own individual reading level. So for example, maybe you have a 5th grade classroom and you've got 2 or 3 kids that are more advanced, they're reading at a middle school level. You can set them at the middle school level. You can set, maybe there are a couple of kids that are at that 5th grade reading level, and you can set them at that level. And then the others are sprinkled out through 4th grade all the way down to kindergarten. So you have everybody that you set at their prospective reading levels. And it just takes a few minutes to set it up. And then any book that student, or if you're at home, the children in your home are using, when they go in and read a book, they're reading exactly that same content at their ability. So in a click of a button, anybody has the ability to set up and configure this content that shows up for a reader at their right level. So behind the scenes, what we've done is we created 15 discrete reading levels, kindergarten through 12th grade, and in English and Spanish. And we make it accessible with dyslexic-friendly fonts for those kids who are dyslexic. We have read aloud functionality, word highlighting functionality. We have reading comprehension questions that we can track their abilities as they read the content and engage with that content. So for teachers, and it makes it really easy for them to provide the right material at the right moment in time for every student, and have them all reading the same content and learning the same ability as they progress. And that's really, really powerful. And what's missing today in today's educational landscape.
No, that's, and I wish probably this solution was available when I was growing up, right? But because the biggest challenge that I feel you're trying to solve, right, is obviously that the standardized content that is actually probably published by educational institutes, be it probably from the lower grade, obviously to mid grade as well, right, is a lot of students or a lot of children are not able to comprehend or probably comprehend that. And probably what you're doing is you're probably building content which is very, very specific to that particular child, right? Which definitely is a game changer, right? But if you then look at it, Adrian, from educational content perspective, there are 2 additional challenges that are there, right? One obviously is that you've got students, so you've got students who are dyslexic, right, who probably do not understand the regular content or probably the regular text that's actually built, right? Number 2, you have other challenges with kids as well, like probably early stage Down syndrome, right? Other issues which probably the content or the educational institutes today do not cater to at a very large level, right? The second problem statement probably obviously is the distribution of this content, right? Because and most importantly, you would not want the child to generate that content, right? Because you want to control the type of content that's being generated, because these guys are still developing their comprehending capabilities, right? So they don't understand what is right and what is wrong, right? So how does your product take care of these 2 challenges?
It's a very thoughtful question. Let me back up for a second, and then I'll go forward in that piece. If you look at 32 students in a classroom, you might have 4 or 5 that are reading at the reading level, the exact level. So you have a few kids who are more advanced, so they're bored in the classroom, and you've got a lot more kids who are lagging behind that aren't at that reading level. So you've got this huge disparity in the classroom. It makes it really hard to engage every student. And then you've got that 32%, you've got 5%, actually, I'm sorry, take that back, 4 to 5 students, maybe at the max, 2 to 3, that have maybe visual challenges. You've got kids that have dyslexia, they're dyslexic. You've got ADHD. You might have kids on the spectrum. So you have this huge gamut of gaps in the classroom. So, or challenges. I wouldn't say gaps, but challenges where you're trying to advance every student in wherever they are, whether they're lagging at level or beyond. So when we take, for example, there's a standard in the United States called Next Generation Science Standards, which is in 44 US states. We took all that content and created all that content, the specific curriculum content in every requirement, kindergarten through 12th grade. We actually took all that content and made it fully accessible for every grade, reading grade. So that means you can come in at your ability and read that content. If you're learning about the water cycle, for example, is an expectation, then if you are, and I'll go break it down like then how it's solved. So if a teacher sets this up of learning about the water cycle, the specific NGSS content, and then a student comes in and let's say they are reading grade level, so they read it at that 5th grade reading level that we're talking about. Or if they have Down syndrome, then there is a full audiobook version that they can listen to, which is at an easier level, which is basically covers kindergarten through 4th grade. Or because we have this visual, and every page has visual graphics and images on it, that's also really great for picking up for those who have some kind of cognitive challenges around, or they're bored, they don't like reading, but maybe they pick up the cues from visuals. We also have read aloud functionality, which is also for other auditory learning styles. And then the text is really amazing for those who just really great at reading. So I've kind of sprinkled like all the different use cases, but all these things are enabled with our platform. And this is early off the press, but I think it's probably good to share here, Rish, is we are also working on a Braille reader too, so that we can actually help those who are visually impaired. So we can support full accessibility, enlarging font sizes for different kids, read alouds for other kids, full audiobooks for other kids, the gamut of learning capabilities, so they can engage in that water cycle content.
That's brilliant, right? Adrian, I mean, and I have been part of some of these institutions which takes care of very special need kids, right? Well, there's a lot of personal, and I'm really proud of these institutions, right? There's a lot of personal touch, right? That probably the physically present staff, right, which are either the teachers or the caretakers, do bring in. But the complaints that I've heard from them is that the education or the content that they have, right, is not very, very catered to these kids, right? So that definitely is, I mean, if we are able to build this at scale, that definitely is like a game changer, right? At least, I mean, obviously from tech perspective, yes, but from business and social responsibility perspective as well, right, Adrian? Now, one more thing that probably our audience would be very interested in understanding is that obviously everyone has struggled today to even leverage Gen AI. Right? Well, everyone wants to leverage Gen AI, but and that's the focus of this series as well, right? That how our customers are actually using to solve the problem, right? Do you want to probably also highlight some of these tech aspects of the solution? Like what were the outcomes you were able to achieve, right? Specifically leveraging something like or building on top of Bedrock on Amazon and so on. Like what were the technology outcomes that you were able to achieve to this solution?
The tech side is really, really fascinating. And I think to frame it, I think the best way is, education, with a specific curriculum is ideally one size fits all, right? But it doesn't work that way. Whether it's accessibility or reading grades, it's one set of curriculum and that 5th grade classroom or 2nd grade classroom or high school classroom, whatever it is. So how does the technology, because we actually, it's one size fits all. We actually, one story fits every type of use case, which doesn't exist. So how does our technology, and why did we choose technology to solve this problem, right? So the AI piece, the first thing that we had to do is we had to create a solution set. And I just want to give a shout out to GoML, is that we worked heavily in partnership to solve this problem together. But how do we apply AI, but in a way that is safe and responsible, that provides the right content at the right time, that has specific guardrails around it? So one of the things that we did is we did build on a lot of this infrastructure in AWS, and we use a tremendous amount of AI capability. But what's very powerful and different about what happens in the universe of AI generated content is everything we've done and we built through our configuration of building and delivering content is it's pre-generated, pre-approved. So we've to date, we have 520 stories, which equates to, thousands and thousands and thousands of images and 18,720 grade levels of text. And I don't know how many, we have million some odd words that we have in our platform today, and we have thousands of characters and all this content we had to build. So if we peel back a little bit, we had to create an engine where we could start with some specific frameworks. Like we want to create a story, a nonfiction or fiction story around this. And then what we did together was we trained on AI to figure out how we could take that piece of material, create an output in one grade level, let's say 11th grade level. And then we had to figure out how to now scale that across every single grade level. And then as we solved that problem, we had to simultaneously solve images that would support like a 9-page book and characters that would flow through that story and vocabulary that's specific to each reading grade and comprehension questions for each reading grade. And for K through second, I'm going on and on, and for K through second, there's the science of reading components, the decodables that we have to work into for kindergarten through second grade. All these separate components means we have to do a tremendous amount of AI build and have the guardrails to make sure that it's safe and responsible. And then it's approved by, human in the loop that we approve it. So this infrastructure that you built together is incredibly robust, incredibly scalable, incredibly refined. And what we can do in 15 minutes, it takes a publisher 6 to 9 months to create.
That's a massive outcome to achieve, right? Like you've been able to bring that 9-month timelines to probably less than an hour, right? So that's the power, obviously, that we want to highlight to our audience, right? And just to probably add on to what Adrian mentioned as well, like using something like Bedrock on Amazon also gave us that option of using multiple models, because we had to generate text, we had to generate images, we had to generate voice. One model fits all, right, is not the philosophy for these type of use cases anymore, right? So that actually gave us that flexibility as well, right? One feature that I really love about the solution that it which is very close to my heart is that the teachers are able to real-time track, the readability or the comprehensibility of the content at student level, right? And then they're able to act upon it, which is very critical, right? When especially it comes to younger children, because as you mentioned, not everyone has the right level of learning. Do you want to just speak a bit about that feedback mechanism and real-time tracking mechanism as well?
I think it's also, it's also the power of our tech stack too that allows this to happen. If you're a teacher or a parent, how do you know that your students actually read the material? How do you know they have comprehended it? What do you know? And actually in a classroom, you don't really know how every student's doing in real time. You just don't know. And in a public classroom, you get tested 3 times a year for your reading ability. So beginning of the year, so they know what reading level you're starting at, the middle of the year to see if you progressed or regressed or where you're at. And at the very end of the year, they test you again because they have to report this to the state on how every student's doing. So wouldn't it be very powerful that you could track in real time what happens in every student versus waiting 3 months, 5 months? And so our platform tracks how many words each student's read, how many books they've read, how many pages they've read, how many minutes they've read. So you could see when your students have reached 5 hours of reading. You don't know if they have, but now you do. You also know specifically each book they've read, the reading comprehension scores they've got, to know whether or not they're ready to be advanced to that next maybe half grade increment. Or maybe it's just a little too challenging and then bring them down a little bit. But in real time, you can see where they're at, and then you can instantly, in a click of a button, put them at the right level to support their needs to help advance them. Nobody does that today, where you get that kind of ability to track what's happening in real time. So yeah, that's a really good question, Rich. That's kind of behind the scenes what's very powerful. Yeah.
And it's funny, right, that we always talk about personalization probably for retail, and we built this for multiple retail customers with real-time feedback mechanism. This is the first time that we've implemented something of this sort for education, right? So I really, really applaud, first of all, the vision, Adrian, you have really brought in, right? Because, and maybe I'm saying this because as I highlighted, probably I'm a new dad, just probably a year old, but I do feel probably that's the most important asset, right, that we have today. So I really applaud the vision, right, Adrian.
Thank you.
I'm going to come to a more selfish question now, Adrian. And we've been partners for, I think, almost 1.5 years now, right? Ojje definitely was one of the first strategic customers that we onboarded. And it happened towards chance, right? Like, I mean, Adrian just pinged me on LinkedIn and we connected. And since then, at least I'm hoping the journey has been upwards, right? Why don't you probably also highlight, how it helped you, partner with someone like GoML, right? Because obviously, as we have also grown into the maturity cycle, we are also probably solving a lot of challenging use cases. But Ojje still remains one of those very, very important challenging use cases for us to solve. So how did it help you in your vision to partner with someone like GoML?
I think I'm just trying to think right now. I think there's like 5 very powerful distinctions that of why GoML was really significant to help us. One is that you had a strategic partnership already with AWS. And what we can do with that is that now Ojje has this amazing partnership with GoML and with AWS. So each one is now a strategic partner. So bringing that to the forefold was first and foremost really amazing. So we had these really great strategic partners. Second of all is the technology capability. We're able to tap into front end, back end, ops, QA, all these different resources that come into the fold to actually support us in creating content and creating the technology stack, to creating our front-end user experience. All these other components come to life. So that's the second one. The third is, and from a granularity perspective, we really had to enable AI in the right framework. So today, we were working with a few different LLM models. And to date, we think we have over 24 AI agentic agents working to create content. And Rish, you and I have talked about this. I mean, in all the companies you work with today, it's very rare to have anybody using more than just a couple. But we are by far using one of the most number of agentic AI systems. The third, I would say, is that we're able to scale up and scale down resources based on the challenges in each configuration we're trying to solve. So we're able to load balance our resourcing and pretty easy abilities and time to manage our product support, our fundraising cycles, and our scaling and expansion. And fifth, I would just say we have a really good rapport with each other to address any issues as they come up and resolve all those issues as they come up. So I feel like these are very, very powerful distinctions from partnership with AWS, ability to create content through and enable our tech stack and our AI capabilities, and build a really solid, collaborative working relationship. So that's really powerful.
No, absolutely, Adrian. And that's what we love, right, doing is working very collaboratively, because at GoML, we work with a lot of early stage startups like yourselves, right? In helping them probably identify the right vision, right tenets in terms of adopting that from technology perspective. So we love collaborating and probably growing along with you, right? So thanks first of all for that feedback, Adrian. I'm hoping we'll probably grow this, bigger and better together. But I do agree, right? Like what, and this is a very recent report that Gartner just published, right? Where they've highlighted that 95% of the efforts or agentic use cases that have gone live have not seen the light of the day, right? But it's very, very intriguing to see. And as you rightly mentioned, we probably have dozens of agents that are actually running within the Ojje solution at the backend. Seeing something of this sort probably going live and actually being used in production is definitely a game changer and success story for all of us, right? I've seen this a couple of times and I still get excited whenever I see this, but I'm pretty sure what our audience would love to see, Adrian, is that the story that's closest to your heart that you've actually generated at Ojje today. Why don't you probably display that or showcase that to our audience once?
Oh, I'd love to. We're just gonna. I'll show you a couple images there. But Rish, one of the things I think is really powerful too is that we through our partnership, AWS has opened up some really amazing doors for us. We now have enterprise grade AI capabilities, which most startups don't have access to. So we're able to process millions of tokens, a day, hundreds of millions in weeks, actually in less than a week. Processing power capability of outputting content faster. I mean, if we didn't have these capability sets, we couldn't do it in under an hour. The amount of parallel and series completion of content. So really powerful. Also, before I jump in, I love that there's the sound of a baby in the background.
That's apologies for that. That's my 12-month-old daughter, which I'm not able to control. So
no, I think it's great because this is all about learning, and so so the question for you before we jump in is, when is she going to start using Ojje?
As soon as she's able to consume this content, obviously I'm going to get some discount from you for sure, but I'll sign up as soon as she's able to consume this content. I'm just waiting for another 12 months and we're on the portal.
Well, that's great. I just happen to, obviously, in our video, we have a lot of content. I just think it would be really, just showing just a couple things would be really interesting, but we create these sections here: physical sciences, life sciences, earth sciences, and technology engineering. All these are stories that support NGSS, learning, next generation science standards. We have stories like Admiral Ape, which I'm excited because this is looking at Captain Underpants, which is a phenomenon here. What can we do that kind of relates to that? That's that series there. There's also teachers who said, how do we help kids learn to learn? And this whole series is about, every student diving in to learn a little bit more about how they can learn better. Because learning is hard in itself, but no one's basically sat down and said, hey, here's the 12 secrets to learning. And so here's all the, my brain needs breaks example on the right, or why sleep and water make me smarter. These are great. This is the most remarkable beings in the universe. A horse, a dragon. They're really funny stories. I'll show you a couple clips. Geography around the world. These are the monster files, were just funny stories about monsters. A little girl came up and said, Adrian, why aren't there, the amazing stories of monsters? So these are all funny stories about monsters. Another teacher said, hey, can we teach kids how to, cooking and eating and foods? See, these are all about healthy foods, which is pretty wild, actually. Dark chocolate, avocados. This is our version. Rex Vex is our version of Diary of a Wimpy Kid. It's called Rex Vex. We have our own series. We create all our own content. It's not licensed like other platforms are using licensed content. This is all original based content. This is Fritz the Dog Detective, dinosaurs, how our emotions, social emotional learning, the elements, how our body works, things around, places around the world. Like if we dive into Mexico or Canada, I think there's one that's really fun is Australia. I'm going to go see if I can find that one. And I showed this, I think this was in the video too, but these characters are amazing. We actually take each character and they go through a series with different outfits, that fit in each scene of their stories. They go through it. If I look at the NGSS content, this is Meteor Shower Mayhem, the water cycles and our characters that show up in our story. This is that most remarkable. Then we have a vampire that goes through the story. So these are really cool. If I just, the interesting thing, if I just use this vampire as an example, is this is the teacher portal. But when I go in, I can see, what vocabulary that we're learning at this third grade reading level, right? But if I take this all the way up to middle school, second half of middle school, luminescence, conscientious, I can't even say that. Consciousness.
Conscientious.
Thank you. Mesmerizing. Or we ladder it down to first grade. And when we're in first grade, we can see our decodables of science and reading, how this is kind of threaded in first through second. And, our reading comprehension questions, this is what it looks like at first grade, but let's go to high school. So if you're preparing for your ACTs and SATs, Now, again, this is the most remarkable vampire story. And this first one, what thematic transformation occurs in the story regarding the public's reaction to the vampire? You know, not an easy question to answer. You know, hostility to reverence, skepticism, like these questions are really tough. But this is the power of our platform. We're leveling it and creating it and supporting. These are like the characters, by the way, for you know, Admiral Ape. But all these stories support all these different types of learning, and we have the audiobook outputs. And also, if I go back in here for a moment, we have up here, you can play on the very top for those who need to play. This reads this out loud. You can change the speeds. This is our dyslexic friendly font sizes. If some kids need a larger screen to read, you can zoom into those screens or shrink down. All this is fully accessible. This is website based, so it's not really driven for mobile because we want kids to practicing on a larger screen in the classroom or at home. But this is our full, nearly 19,000 levels of content and growing today. So I'm really, you asked me what the most exciting story is. And I'll just break into that. I sat down for the first time with a young girl at a conference. It was a teacher and her daughter was sitting there bored. And I sat down with her and said, hey, you want to create a story together? So we sat down and we started coming up with an idea for a story about a frog and how a frog makes friends. And the story is Frogs from Frogville. And if you actually go into our website at ojje.com and you look at our free row, you can find the frog story there. Just type in Frogville in the search engine. And that story, the young girl and I created, and we went through, we selected each character, we created the theme, the beginning, middle, end, and then kind of the goal, the output, the learning of that story was how to make friends. And once we finished that story, and then I selected her reading grade and she read it, the color in her face changed. Like she got so excited. She was glued to the screen. She loved it. It was amazing. And that's the kind of activation of reading that Ojje can bring. Our stories can activate your brain, stimulate that learning and improve literacy outcomes. Pretty cool stuff.
And that's instant user feedback, right? Like you were able to probably see that, and I probably refer to that as instant gratification as well, right? But that's really impressive, right, Adrian? First of all, and I know we are a bit over time, but one last thought that I want you to probably share with our audience is I'm intrigued. Obviously, as I mentioned, probably as soon as my daughter and my son are able to comprehend this, we're on this portal. But how can our audience start accessing like some of these stories in Ojje?
Oh, I love it. Thank you for asking that. Yeah, we're here talking about GoML and Ojje, and it's a really good point. So if watching this today, go to ojje.com, ojje.com. And I'm not wearing the like what you have on your shirt, but ojje.com, and then there is a subscription page. Now, for teachers, you can sign up and get 2 months free. Sign up, have your entire class using it. Up to 32 students, and then after that, it's really economical. It's $8.99 a month, so it's very, very affordable, cheaper than any other solution out there that you can get, and you get more solution sets and more tools to use. And for parents, you can use it at home as well. Even grandparents can give it, have it work, use it with their kids, or even tutors can use it. So that solution is free for 10 days. And then it's $3.99 per month. It's really, really affordable as well. So, and then we have advanced tools and enterprise tools for districts and even just schools on their own. So you can go in right today. You can try it out. And here's the thing that I will do. So if the first 10 people that sign up, just occurred to me I should do this. If the first people that sign up, I will see that coming through, and I will set up not only a demonstration to walk you through the platform, but I will co-create a story with you that can join our platform. So powerful, it's really powerful. We can walk through that so you can see how our creation process goes. So the way you do that is you go to our site, select one of our plans, click on subscribe, enter your credit card information. It doesn't process it until you let 10 days or that 2 months passes. And then once that happens, I'll see that, I'll reach out and we'll set up some time to connect.
Sign me up for that, Adrian. Wow, $3.99. I don't even get eggs for $3.99 these days, so quite affordable, honestly, right? But Adrian, I really appreciate your time. It's always obviously good to interact with you, and I hope our audience also enjoyed the session. I'm pretty sure that probably a lot of our folks would want to probably at least try it out, and I would look forward to probably people coming and working jointly with you. I take you on that offer, co-creating a story for sure. But thanks again, Adrian. Thanks everyone for joining in. Wrapping up the first episode of GoLive series, right, where again the focus is how do we engage with our clients to showcase and narrate actual stories of how they're using generative AI to go live with their use cases. With that, wrapping it up.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.